I'm John Gourley, and I play in the band Portugal the Man, sing, play guitar, write songs, all that stuff. I have some very specific musical memories. I mean, they're always hanging out with my family in Alaska. I mean, I grew up in the woods. We really did grow up. Family of dog sled mushers, ran the Yukon Quest and the Iditarod. I flew out and followed along on that stuff. We pretty much just had what my parents listened to before they came up to Alaska. And my dad came up right out of high school, my mom as well. So it was anything 70 and before. It was all 50s and 60s. I mean, that's like what we listened to. So it was Motown, Beatles, lots of Beatles sing-alongs in the car. Mostly just oldies radio. It wasn't until I had heard like Nirvana and Oasis that I really decided that I wanted to play music. I mean, there were a few points when I really knew that that's what I wanted to do. I mean, never be on stage. I just wanted to write music. I care less about being in front of people. That's kind of a scary thing. I think it was hearing Oasis for the first time, though, when I really connected everything. I mean, before this point, it was, well, if the Beatles sound this good, and this is the 60s, and we're in the 90s right now, what could we even do? I mean, there's nothing better than the Beatles. Like, I haven't heard anything. Like, what's topped it? Nothing. And then I heard Oasis and went, you can rip off the Beatles and write songs this good? Like, that's amazing. I mean, I really connected with it because it was like hearing the Beatles. And it's the accent. I mean, they're from the same place, same area. Lots of Beatles references. You can rip off the Beatles. And then Nirvana's there too, playing 3 chords and going, yeah, you can play 3 chords. You can do that. I mean, it's a really naive thing to say, but seeing that happen, seeing our bass player Zach play at our school, he would play at lunch period. His band would set up, they'd play like Cannibal Corpse and Pantera and Slayer and all these different things. And I thought, man, if kids I go to school with can cover that music, why can't they write it? You know, why can't we write music? Again, naive. It's not always the case. Yeah, it's things that I realize now are technical musicians are often different than creatives in music. I mean, there's just a total disconnect between the two groups a lot of the time. I mean, it's rare that you find people like Jack White that just shred and write good music. Steal good music. Well, see that? We're all stealing something. You know, when we finished the last album, we had been through about a year of writing and recording, and there was just a lot of miscommunication, and it seemed like I was just hitting a wall at every turn, and things were not connecting the way they should have been. And I should have realized, but Ryan Neighbors, our keyboard player for the last 3 years, he had wanted to make his own project. He wanted to make his own music. And, I mean, he was probably weird about saying it. I know he felt really bad telling us. But this band has always been about, like, whoever wants to play music with us can play music. And if not, like, have fun and do your thing. And I support Ryan in doing that. He made a project called Hustle and Drone. And I think they're finishing up their album right now. I'm pretty sure. We're out on tour. I'm not in Portland. But he was with us for a long enough period that he really contributed to the sound. I mean, he did a lot of background vocals, and I listen back and I hear it. Like, I know what we're missing on these albums. But that being said, just like when our gear was stolen at Lollapalooza, we had all of our whole van and trailer stolen at Lollapalooza. We were lucky enough to get most of it back through Twitter and just social media in general. But when these things happen, I don't freak out. I don't really freak out in the way that you would. I take a step back and go, okay, cool, let's see the gear list. Let me cross things off. Don't need that. I don't use that. I don't see that used enough. Let's get this keyboard, or let's get this drum kit. With Ryan, it was the same thing. It was, I guess I got to find a keyboard player, and Jason too. I got to find a drummer. So I just took a step back and said, who would I want to play for this? And luckily Kyle O'Quinn came on board. He played on our second record, which was, I mean, it's years ago now. I mean, not like, it was our second album. We've put out 7. So I called him up, and initially I was going to ask him if he knew any keyboard players, because he plays with some of our friends. There's no way. You don't step in that. You just stay out. And when I called him, I just said, you know what, do you want to play keyboard in this band? I know you're in Seattle, you've been playing a lot of local shows and everything, but do you want to come and tour with us? And it was the right timing for him. Kane Rashat playing drums. He's a friend of Noah's who has been on tour with us doing auxiliary percussion and just every other instrument. These guys are really amazing. Like the band is on point. I feel really comfortable getting on stage with these guys.
It's good to hear it.
New band, but it's together. Portugal, the man, has been putting out records for 7 years, 8 years, something like that. And we were putting out an album a year, and pretty much just documenting the growth of the band. It was more about trying to learn how to write songs. So I would do it every year. Every time I had a break, I'd write a new album. And that was cool until we got to that point where we played Bonnaroo in 2009. And it was the first time we were really tight at a show. I mean, it's so easy to say, oh man, get off my case. We're a rock band. We're loose. It's punk. Keep it loose. The second we played that show, there was this realization that like all this hard work and all this practice, I mean, there's a lot of truth to it. 10,000 hours of practice. We had played 1,000 shows, and I mean countless acoustic shows as well. I mean, we play a lot of music, and that's when Atlantic Records came along, and I said, you know, we should actually try and do this thing. We put out In the Mountain in the Cloud, and to me that was our best record we had made. And with all these lineup changes that happened directly after In the Mountain in the Cloud, I wanted to take a break. And we have never taken 2 years between albums, and I hope we don't do that again. I mean, we might have to, who knows. But I wanted to give everybody space. I wanted to give Ryan space to work on Hustle and Drone, and Jason some time at home, and I wanted to practice with the new band. I mean, In the Mountain was probably, I mean, to me it feels more like it was our first album, because it was our first with Atlantic. That was our first professional recording where we got to go in and pick a producer and take time. With Evil Friends, we worked with Danger Mouse, and I mean, really we started the album a year ago. I mean, over a year ago, year and a half ago now. We were in El Paso recording. Everybody's letting us self-produce. Trust us. Atlantic Records on board, management on board. Totally, man, make your record. Take your time. I got a call 2 weeks in that was, can you come out to New York and meet Danger Mouse tomorrow? And I was pissed. I mean, I was really annoyed. Like, you can't call somebody up after you just said you trust them and deliver the biggest meeting that you could possibly have with Danger Mouse, you know? Like, he makes some big, amazing records. So when I headed out there, I was annoyed, but at the same time, it's an opportunity that you don't always have. So I left El Paso, went to New York. First thing Brian said to me was, Brian is Danger Mouse, to make it clear. The first thing he said was, hey man, just so you know, I don't really want to work with another band. I work with the Black Keys. They're my boys. I got my rock band. I was like, cool, great. So I'm in New York just hanging. And I ended up just hanging out with Brian the whole day. We just listened to music. And before I left, I mean, this isn't a pretentious thing. He asked me what type of record we wanted to make. I was like, I don't know, man, the best. Like, you want to make the best record, because what's the point? There's no point to continuing playing music if you're looking back going, well, So American worked, kind of. Like, I should try to rewrite that song. There's no point. You gotta be like, you gotta aim for Dark Side of the Moon. You gotta aim for Thriller. And it's not something that you're ever going to attain, because those are classics. You can't beat a classic. Nobody can beat the Beatles. It's just not going to work that way. But when I left, I think we both just laughed about the best record. Yeah, make the best record, of course. As I left, he said, you know what, we should probably make a record together. And we just couldn't work together until later in the year. He was busy. He was working on things. We were working on things. We were touring. So it seems like this is a really long answer to your question, or whatever. We just took our time to make it, to give space to the guys, to get our own space as well, get the new band practiced up and ready, and understanding that you can't care if you fall when you're on stage. You can't care about anything. It's just love music and have fun. And Evil Friends, I know I'm supposed to say this because we're promoting the record, but it's our best record. It's our best album. And it is by far. It's all that practice has led up to making things like the White Album and Abbey Road. I can't believe I just said that. That's so stupid. Revolver, Rubber Soul, man. That's the reason you do it. You have to get there, and you have to get there through playing covers of other people's songs and finding your sound. And I think we found our sound, and Danger Mouse produced it, and it's good. My favorite track on Evil Friends is probably Hip Hop Kids, and it's because it was just the way it was written. We had flown out. We were going to tour the Black Keys, so we're starting the tour in Europe, starting in Paris, and I took my daughter and my girlfriend out there a week early. So I'm like hanging out in Paris for a week, just hanging. Go out to the first show. Never played stadium tours before. There's a buffet, salmon, chicken, like whatever you want to eat. Vegetarian options, vegan options. There was something that it was so far from rock and roll in my mind. And it's the nature of the beast. I mean, you have this huge crew on these tours. You have to get in 8,000 people to a show. I mean, people can complain about that when bands get to that size, but that's a big deal. And I don't think the Black Keys give a shit. Should I not say shit?
No, it's all good.
I can say shit. I know they don't care. The Black Keys could care less. They're a serious rock band. But there was something about it that was, fuck rock and rollers, fuck punk rock, fuck hip hop kids. Music is about loving it, and this is what we do. And for the last week, I've been hanging in Paris and took my daughter out for a walk. Pushed her around in her stroller and fed some swans. That's real. Like, that's really what it's like. But I mean, it's fun. Portugal the Man is a live band. It really has been 7 years of touring straight, 8 years of touring just non-stop. We get to go out and play live music, 250 days a year, and we did that for a long time. And to me, I think presenting something that's visually exciting and sonically exciting, and it has to be dynamic. You really have to think about what you're doing. Being in Canada right now, I have a connection as an Alaskan. I mean, we're much closer to Canada. I mean, not just in proximity. I mean, it's the type of people that live there. It's cool. I used to follow my dad on the Yukon Quest, and we'd fly out. We'd be in Dawson and like Whitehorse, and I always loved coming over here. And this show is just going to be fun. I think the shows out here are going to be really cool. We've put together a whole new tour, whole, like, their projections and crazy stage setup. We have Zoe singing with us again, which is really nice. She sang on 3 of our albums. It'll be a fun tour, fun show. Life is, man, that's so heavy. It's so fucking heavy. You've heard life is what you make it before. That's an obvious one. Actually, I don't know what life is. I have a really bad memory. It's probably... Actually, I know exactly where it comes from. But to me, you have to be true to yourself. You have to be honest and deliver who you are. I mean, relating all this stuff to music, I see bands all the time that go into the studio, friends' bands go into the studio, and I hear the changes in their music, and you can tell they're like trying to write a pop record or whatever. You know, like, I want to make something that's going to be on the radio, and you can't really do that unless that's who you are. The reason Britney Spears works, and Christina Aguilera, and Rihanna, and Odd Future, like, the reason that works is because that's who they are. Like, they grew up in Nashville, and they had people trying to pick them up all the time to be on Columbia or Universal or whatever. Like, they create pop stars, and that's what they want to be, and that's what they want to do. You can't do that as an outsider. You can't listen to the radio and go, oh, Umbrella. That's it? That's what I gotta do? Easy. That stuff's hard. It's hard work. You gotta be honest.